Today we need to talk about Steroline, which I'm aware sounds like sterilize, but that's the name, we're going with it. That's the ship name of Stefan and Caroline from the Vampire Diaries and their romantic pairing in the show. And I need to make a video and talk about it with you guys because I was just left slightly like confused and unsatisfied and yes, disappointed once I got to the end of the show. And I was like, that was it? Like, really? I was so sad because they started out so strong and then they fizzled out. So today I'm putting my English literature and creative writing degree to use, and I want to talk about why it didn't really feel as authentic and exciting as it should have, and how to do friends to lovers right as a trope, because obviously that's what the writers were trying to imitate and recreate, but somewhere along the line it went well. And this is something I've been really wanting to talk about on my channel for a while, because I've talked about like the bully lover trope a lot, enemies to lovers, but not really friends to lovers, and it's a really popular one. And I get the appeal. That's why we have When Harry Met Sally, Love Rosie, My Best Friend's Wedding. And it's not like the biggest romantic thing out there in terms of like a cliche or a type of pairing, but it's definitely one of the most popular, because I guess there's something very romantic about the idea of marrying your best friend or ending up with your best friend or someone that you initially maybe didn't have your eyes set on as a romantic option. And I hear these stories all the time of couples who knew each other for 10 years, they were in and out of each other's lives, and then they ended up getting married, or they were friends for years and it developed into something more because someone was waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. And it's honestly really cute. I like the movie Love Rosie a lot. It's a great movie. And somehow, even though I would say the writers in the Vampire Diaries did a really good job as a whole, like they are very talented, they just made so many mess ups at the same time with really important stuff, like who Stefan ended up with. And he's a main character. His love life should be a priority to them, and yet it seemed like it wasn't. And so it was a slightly disappointing resolution for his character and for Caroline, and they're big important characters, fan favorites. But it's like the writers were so obsessed with Delina and with Damon's character. There was this favoritism going on, and then Stefan and Caroline were neglected, and it was absolutely bizarre because they could have made it super exciting, especially because we had Delina being very like passionate and toxic at points, and they could have done the complete opposite in a really cool, refreshing way with Stefan and Caroline, and made their relationship more of a soft love, more of a slow burn, kind of gentle, built on friendship, and done it in a way where it was just a really refreshing, fun contrast. And that's the issue, is they didn't do friends to lovers right. And I'm so frustrated because I'm like, do you guys need a workshop refresher? Do you not know how this works? Like, it's actually not that hard to do correctly. It really doesn't take that much time. Like, do you guys not know what you're doing? Like, it's just so many really obvious things that they should have known how to do. Like, it's not that hard that they did wrong, and they're just little things. But I was like, oh, I'm so annoyed, because if you just done that better, then it could have been perfect. Because here's the thing. This is the first section of the video, which is just the development of their relationship. They are not inherently a bad pairing. It wasn't the concept of them being together in the first place that was bad or wrong necessarily. It was the execution. So let's get into part one, which is why it didn't really work, in my opinion. So I wasn't a fan of this relationship, even though ironically most of the time they had a very healthy, very respectful dynamic, far healthier than many things that happened in the Damon-Elena romance. Yet why was it that I still preferred Delina 100 times over, and I was more sold to believe it? Well, there's a few things. when people go wrong with friends to lovers, it's that they either focus too much on the lover's part, so it's like they were never friends, or too much on the friendship part, so then you don't really see like the sexual or romantic element of it. And it's a very fine balance, because when you're in a relationship with someone, of course you should talk and genuinely like their values, their sense of humor, them as a person. They should have the foundations of someone you would genuinely want to be friends with. Like, you're not just into them, you actually like them as a person. It's very important. However, they're not just your pal or your bro. There should be an element there of something deeper. I mean, I would hope for it to be like a successful romantic relationship or a sexual relationship, right? It's not rocket science. I don't think anything I'm saying right now should be considered crazy. Like, to me, this is literally just common sense. However, it was like just not, it was just so much. It's just, I've got so many problems with this. Okay, so we are led to believe that you can only really have one epic love, and Stefan starts questioning the nature of this and if he'll ever find someone he loved the same way that he loved Elena. And there's this idea that he will. So you're really excited to see who will this person be, because I had a feeling that maybe it wasn't Elena because she was getting so much screen time with Damon, and as it turns out, she doesn't end up with Stefan, right? The problem was is that they needed someone to go above and beyond to be even better than the relationship he had with Elena, to really convince us that it was perfect, right? That him and Caroline were the perfect couple. If they couldn't have pulled it off with Caroline, they should have brought in someone else. And here's the thing, it's inherently weird that he and Caroline got together. Like, everyone dates each other in the show. It might have been nice to bring in just a fresh new face as like a supporting character for Stefan, because it's all a bit weird. You know, Bonnie dates Jeremy, and then Stefan ends up marrying Caroline, but she was Elena's best friend, and also Damon had already slept with Caroline in season 1. In my opinion, it's all too much of everyone dating each other. It might have been nice to just have a fresh new supporting character for Stefan. However, if they wanted Stefan to be paired with like a major main character and they wanted it to be Caroline, I have no opposition to that. It could have worked. They had potential. It wasn't that from the start they had no chemistry. The problem was that they started to develop something and I got excited about it, and then it wasn't pulled off right. And that's why it started out good and then it kind of went downhill from there. So, point 1, Stefan and Caroline are both great characters. I really like both of them. They deserved true love, an epic love, not just a whatever love, but something really, really special and real. And I don't think that them ending up together did either of them justice, because it seemed like they both settled, or it was the best they could do because they didn't have any other choice. Like, that's really how it seemed. In fact, I was so put off that I was questioning whether they were ever supposed to be a couple, or if it was a last minute decision on the writer's part, or if they planned it on the beginning, because that's how out of left field it was for me. So if you look at their development, season 1, there is no reason you would ever suspect that these two would end up together. In fact, he rejects her and they barely interact. Season 2, again, very limited interaction aside from when he supports her emotionally when she becomes a vampire. They have a scene where she's in the midst of her bloodlust and he comforts her and holds her and reassures her. There was chemistry in that scene. The problem is because they keep dropping off on each other throughout the show, there wasn't time to build the chemistry and excitement, you know? It's why they say, like, distance makes the heart grow fonder, but not too much distance, because then it's dead. Like, some distance cool creates longing, but if you just don't see the person for a full 6 years in person, or you don't speak to them, then at some point the infatuation and pining and longing is just going to turn into actual absence. And they definitely push it too far in the sense that these two did not have enough screen time. So they started to build chemistry, but then they just barely interacted in season 2 as well. Then we had season 3, and this was when the love triangle was really rearing its head between Elena and Damon and Stefan. And it was very obvious to me. I don't care what the writers had planned from the beginning. I don't care if they kind of thought she'd end up with Stefan. It doesn't matter to me. It was obvious when I was watching it that the actors who played Elena and Damon had 100 times more chemistry. They were popping off, and I just was not convinced that she would really take Stefan seriously long term. And to me, it seemed like she was in the episode where after she kissed Damon at the motel, she decided she didn't actually want that, and she drove back in the car to go and be with Stefan. It makes it seem like she's choosing Stefan. Like, Damon calls her on the phone and she's like, I'm sorry, it's always going to be Stefan. And a lot of people say that therefore that means her feelings were stronger. I don't see it that way. I took it as her rejecting Damon temporarily because she wasn't able to commit to choosing him. She was worried he wouldn't do better or be a good person. And also, that whole episode, she'd been dealing with a lot of grief. There was a flashback at the start of the episode, really randomly, of her when she was a cheerleader and her parents were alive, and her reminiscing a lot on wishing her mum could give her advice on things. So I reckon that she went back to Stefan just out of nostalgia for him, nostalgia for the past, and because he was the one person that helped her with her grief when her parents died. She says as much in that episode, that Stefan was there for her at a time when no one else was. She literally felt like life wasn't worth living after her parents died. She was so depressed, and Stefan brought back some sparkle into her life. Now, I know some people see that as romantic. To me, that's not romantic. I just see that as him being a relationship she needed at that time in her life, and she wasn't feeling very confident, but that doesn't mean they're meant to be together. It just meant she was vulnerable and she needed someone, and he literally happened to be there and support her emotionally, and then she's grateful to him and attaches all this emotion and joy to him, like, oh, thank you for saving me, kind of thing. So that's why I felt she was going back to Stefan, is because she was just in so much grief at the time in that specific episode for some weird reason over her parents, that Stefan was like the dream guy in her head, because she'd been through so much with him and he was there in that journey with her, right? Ultimately, in season 3, it's only right at the end that she chooses to go back to Stefan and maybe see him. And not that she's choosing him, but she's going back to see him, right? That whole season, she'd been very much rocky with Stefan and veering more towards Damon. Because she was spending so much time with Damon, like I said, they went away, went to that motel together. It was the perfect opportunity to set up Stefan and Caroline, to have them have scenes, interactions. Instead, that whole season, they're barely interacting, and it's him dealing with Klaus and doing other things, or developing his relationship with Damon. But Caroline and Stefan aren't really in the mix. So there's all this development happening again with Elena and Stefan, Elena, Damon, and Caroline just seems irrelevant. And that is perhaps my biggest problem with Stefan and Caroline as a couple, is that it's like, but how the whole point of a relationship is it's meant to develop. If they're not having screen time, how are they developing? And then it just so happens that they start spending more time together when they think that Elena's side to Damon, and they're sort of taking each other's side. Also, there's some comment made between Stefan and Caroline about how you think you found your epic love, but one day you'll wake up with the new love of your life and you'll have moved on. And it was kind of implying that those two might be together, right? But again, the dynamic was very limited. You see them spending more time together, you know they're getting along and they're a little team, but it's not like that much, you know? And then when we jump to the next season, it's suddenly like they're becoming best friends and they're spending all this time together. But to me, it just felt a bit random. I was like, since when? But okay, I'm not gonna judge it. We see some scenes of them hanging out together, doing things in those later seasons that we hadn't before, so we can see that they're friends. But again, it was kind of out of left field, in my opinion. In season 4, the writers are doing again what they've done before in other situations, where they will focus on all these other relationships developing, but the important one which should be developed. So season 4, both Caroline and Stefan are pursuing other romantic options, but not each other. It's really bizarre. Even in season 4, Stefan still seems so hung up on Elena. That in itself does not bode well, because from season 1 to 4, he's basically been obsessed with her. Even when he was in evil mode with Klaus, he still didn't want to hurt her. He literally turned against Klaus and fought against every will in his body to hurt Elena because Klaus was telling him to, and he stopped himself because that's how much he cared about Elena. He even cared about her when she was separated from him and went off with Damon for a bit. He still was looking out for her, protecting her, caring about her, and even having romantic feelings that he was holding on to. Like, he literally kisses her, I think, at the end of season 3. It's always there. It's always been Elena. And you cannot tell me that his feelings for Caroline would ever been half as deep as they were for his feelings for Elena. Like, it just I don't buy it. I think he even has sex with Catherine at one point, but it's like, maybe you just did that because you wanted to be close to Elena. I'm just saying, it's looking suspicious. Then, when something really bad happens to Damon and it seems like he's dead, in season 6, Stefan just ghosts everyone. He moves away, new job, doesn't contact anyone, ignores Caroline's messages. And again, it showed that, like, if they were really each other's epic loves, would it have been so easy for him to abandon her like that? She had to track him down. He had no intention of contacting her again. She was the one pining and lusting after him, but also like upset because they had a genuine friendship and she thought it meant something, and he just tossed it away and moved on. And it was just like not it. He doesn't seem to really care about her at all. In fact, I would argue he's pushing her away. And as their romance starts to develop when they are reunited again in season 6, it's clear that there's feelings there. But he seems kind of nonchalant about the whole thing. Like, he's not really hardcore pursuing her. And they do share a kiss, but it's very flat energy, and that isn't enough of a reason for him to be sold on her. And what really bothered me as well was the lack of enthusiasm, like, on his end. I don't know, again, I feel like this is so basic. I feel like I'm spelling out such elementary things, but when a guy's interested in you and you kiss and stuff, or you have your first more intimate interactions, they should be so freaking excited about it. Like, they would be. They'd be like, oh my gosh, grabbing at you. Like, they would just be feral. They'd be like, oh my god, I'm so excited. And they would just be responding with so much enthusiasm. He should have been grabbing her. And he was just like, mwah. Just be like, it was just like, what? Like, I don't know, it just felt so weird to me. She's going through so much hard stuff and he's just putting the relationship on hold. And then in season 7, obviously it's more like they're together, but Caroline's really insecure about his past relationships irrationally. They were trying to create angst and conflict, but it didn't work because her angst and her anxiety about his past was so silly that it was kind of hard to actually get anxious about it, so the stakes weren't high. And again, Stefan seems so nonchalant and almost cold and indifferent in all their scenes, or like warm and respectful, but he doesn't seem like extremely excited about her, and that's what was missing. Yeah, and then season 8, he doesn't even really get like, he doesn't even say this proper formal goodbye with her when he dies, and it's about him and Elena again, and him and Damon, and it's just not selling me that these two are soulmates. Now, could he have successfully been with Caroline? Yes, of course. They did have chemistry in the start, but it's all about timing and they drew it out too long. Also, Stefan in general is kind of a chill guy, but they really amped up his low energy, chill thing even more so in the later seasons. So a big part of that was just due to him seeming a bit bland and not really engaging with life in general, and so it came across in his relationship with Caroline. So let's get into part 2, which is friends to lovers. Okay, so let's get into how to write friends to enemies, oh my god, friends, well, it could be friends to enemies to lovers, or it could just be friends to lovers. So this is part 2, okay? The first thing, step 1, is it has to be a natural, seamless transition. So often these are slow burns where it's like they gradually start to fall in love, and then there's normally the big important realization moment where they're like, oh my god, I think I'm into this person, right? Like in Emma, you know, the Jane Austen thing where she's like, she sort of is subconsciously interested and then it really hits her in the face and she's like, oh my god, I like him. It doesn't work to make that shift too fast because that's not the nature of human relationships, and there's always like an awkward middle ground part where they're starting to fall in love. Now, here's the issue. You need to establish first the foundation of how the dynamic is at the beginning, which is friends. The issue with Caroline and Stefan is that they didn't have enough time to really sell me on the power of their friendship. Massive issue, because you don't really truly believe that they're actually friends because it's not being set up like that. They're not interacting. Season 1, literally nothing. Season 2, barely anything. Season 3, barely anything. That's not building a solid friendship throughout the show. Then, when they start to become lovers, the physical chemistry, spark, whatever you want to call it, is lacking. So they also don't really sell you on the lovers part. Like, the sparks were not sparking, you know? I wasn't getting fireworks, I wasn't getting butterflies. So they kind of did both those things subpar. Okay, next step. You need mutual pining, angst, hidden feelings, shame over your feelings. We had that on Caroline's end for sure. We had her feeling guilty about, you know, if Elena would judge her, and sort of a sense of shame on her end, and her wondering why Stefan ghosted her and feeling upset about it. However, it was very much one-sided, and I wasn't really getting that on Stefan's end. I was just getting him being obsessed with Elena or just wanting to be single. Like, Caroline very much appeared to be a second choice. And even on Caroline's end, there were issues, because for so many seasons, she was telling Elena that Stefan was the better option, and she was the biggest Stefan-Elena shipper ever. So what on earth changed her mind to make her want Stefan for herself? It just frankly doesn't make sense. Step 3, you need to want the other person, which also I wasn't sold on, because it seemed like everyone else, like Lexi or Alaric, was encouraging Stefan to go for Caroline, telling him she's a great girl and they'd work well together. And it's like he was pushed into it as opposed to wanting it for himself. Another problem. The next thing, it has to be a slow burn so we can enjoy the love story unfolding, see the different stages. This also was not done correctly, because they don't interact, then suddenly they're friends, and then suddenly Caroline's in love. Like the next season, she's just in love with him. And I don't know how that happened, to be honest. I don't really get it. Then she's getting a bit like jealous of Elena and Stefan's history. Like, I don't know how that happened, because before she just seemed to not like Stefan that much in that way. Stefan wanted to be there for her when her mother was sick and dying. But again, he wasn't really like convincing me that he wanted to be there for her. And then suddenly they just get together. Like, it just sort of happens. The next thing I wrote down is make it sexy. You need moments of jealousy. You need, you know, the moments where they're like forced to sleep in the same bed and it's awkward but hot, or like someone sees the other one topless and they're like, ooh, like, no, that just wasn't there. The next thing I wrote down is you need a meaningful confession. It should be a highlight filled with emotional depth, significance, something really memorable, where someone like kind of blurts out that they're in love with the other person, and it should be really intense. Like they just didn't even know they felt like that. They just sort of said it, like, I love you or something, like, oh! You know, it should be like, wow, like the emotions are just overpouring. This also just wasn't giving. I mean, Caroline's mum had died and she was feeling so low, and she wanted some light at the end of the tunnel, like maybe to know that Stefan at least was there and things would work out with him. So she's kind of nudging him, hoping he'll say something romantic, and he's not really picking up on the cues. And he sort of says something like, you know what, maybe we should talk about this later at another time. You seem very vulnerable right now. He doesn't actually say, don't worry, Caroline, I'm totally in love with you. So he gave her no reassurance. So it wasn't really like this exciting, like that should have been the exciting moment where he made her feel better and was really present and like kissed her or something, and he just didn't. And yeah, the final thing I wrote down is mutual pining, which I just didn't feel was there, because it was too easy for him to leave and he seemed too detached from the relationship as a whole, so it didn't sell me. It wasn't a bad relationship. They had a very healthy, respectful dynamic overall, but it was also very boring, and I just think they could have infused in a bit more kind of chemistry and excitement, or laughter. Like, it was just a bit too serious. And not that I wanted them to be toxic. I love the idea of them being a soft love and being healthy and being what a normal relationship should be. But like, normal relationships can also be fun, and you know, you can have chemistry with the person you're dating. Like, it just was missing that. And that same energy he had when he was with Elena of not really lighting up that much around her, it was like even worse when he was with Caroline in the later seasons. So I just wasn't buying it. But let me know what you think in the comments, and don't worry, my deep dive long video on this show is coming soon. It's cooking, okay? It's cooking, but it's on the way. It's in the kitchen, and I'm really, really excited for that one. It's gonna be great. Also check out my Patreon if you want to see more videos from me for $2 a month, and subscribe, and I will see you guys for the next video.